the artist formerly known as the WordPress Chick. Now she is Kim Doyal from kimdoyal.com. Kim, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on.
What's up, Ross? Thanks for having me here. I always love chatting with you, and this is all near and dear to my heart, and I'm like in the thick of it as well with you. So we're going to have some fun
so
today.
Before we get into the actual tools, can you just give like a brief overview of newsletters and email marketing? Are they the same thing? Are they different? Is one a priority over the other? Give your overview of like where newsletters fit into the email marketing world.
Yeah, I consider newsletters publications. That's how I think of it, right? And because a lot of people would say, well, what's the difference between a newsletter? And I would use the term a solo broadcast, right? If you're just going to send an email out to your list. And so to me, a newsletter is a publication that has a little more structure to it. But again, this a lot of people you'll see on different platforms. That's not how they're doing it these days. But, I actually hit 200. Well, I'm at 204 issues of the Spark, which started out as F the Hustle. So that's over 4 years. I'm almost 4 years without missing a beat. So I'm pleased with that. And then I also, I've got a couple other ones, but then when I had the content planner, we had Creativity Published, and we did that all through Active Campaign. And so for the longest time, the Spark was on ConvertKit. But again, I think of a newsletter as it comes out the same time every week. It's a publication, and people look for specific sections in the newsletter. And then email marketing is solo broadcasts, and you can do automations and all of those other things that happen within email marketing. And so that's how I differentiate them, right? Both are content that I think you should repurpose and republish when it suits you. But that's how I differentiate the two.
Now, you have like at least 3 newsletters. Just tell everybody real quick what your newsletters are.
So, and I'll tell you, like I did I had another one that I tested last fall, late summer. It's called AI Marketing Chronicles, which, the AI newsletters are just kind of a dime a dozen. I've unsubscribed from a lot, except for like 1 or 2. Well, it's kind of the wash, rinse, repeat, completely same format. It was like a little bit of a gold rush, right? But what I was doing with that one was I was testing an experiment, a very specific, like help me write a funnel. And so I'd go in and I would just share the results. So it was marketing. I was testing using ChatGPT for a specific marketing experiment. Anyways, neither here nor there. So the 3 that I have right now, the Spark, obviously, and I'll tell you how I imported that, like whatever, like it's comical because I'm still sort of housekeeping. But a brand new one I launched, it's called Women, Wisdom, and Wealth. It might end up with a different name. It's a little bit of a mouthful. And that is all about exploring for women 40 plus. And I'll tell you the Spark, what that's about. But 40 plus, kind of the psychology of money and what we've been taught, and shifting that mindset and transparency, because I'm actually starting a master's program on financial planning and financial psychology. I'm really fascinated with the financial psychology side of things. Anyways, behavioral finance is kind of a new thing.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Oh, I thought I told you that. Yeah, so that's starting in January.
You had, but you hadn't told me where you also telling everybody. So
this is true.
Share my reaction with them.
Thank you.
As somebody who went back to school for a master's quite a while after I graduated, I think it's really cool. I think it's great to continue learning and to, explore a new area like that.
Well, thanks. And the fun part is like, I'm doing it for me. Like, I don't want to go into finance per se. And I don't necessarily want to go into financial therapy, which is a whole field I didn't know existed either. But yeah, it's wild. It's for me to pursue this because I've been having I'm Gen X. I've had a lot of conversations with women my age. And I'm sure you feel retirement looks very different for us than it did for our boomer parents, right? Like the thing, anyways. So
yeah, they had pensions and things like that.
Right? Will Social Security be here? Not that that's a retirement plan, but it's just for women specifically. It's like what we've been taught and what our beliefs are very different, because I follow a lot of younger women in finance. but like they've had access to the internet since they were in high school. You know what I'm saying? Like to massive amounts of information that we weren't given. And there's a lot of societal beliefs and all that stuff. Anyway, so
Plus, they're at a different stage in terms of their tolerance for risk and for trying new things, and the 50-year investment plan, whatever, right? Like there's all sorts of different things that they're looking at that people of our generation may not think is wise at this point.
Right. And also, having a different, besides like, that's kind of my goal, and I've gotten really into neuroscience too, and changing beliefs through the brain. It's fascinating, but there's this intersection with money for anybody where you've got the tangible and the intangible, right? So think of a Venn diagram, and it's that middle place of, so there's mindset, there's beliefs, there's psychology, and then you've got practical steps and stuff. And you have to find, because the truth is with the internet, I mean, I've got a friend that launched something new 4 years ago, and she's on track to do $1 million this year, right? It's an online business outside of the marketing space, and we can rant on that later. But so I also know what's possible with the internet, right? In terms of catching up with retirement and stuff. And so many people, Gen X is probably 44 plus, but I'll just say over 40. I'm over 50. So, but the whole thing is, it's a different perspective also on recouping losses or looking at, I'll always have a side hustle. Like I'm sort of one of those people, I don't know that I'll ever retire traditionally,
right.
Because there's a lot of things I like to do. So this is, and we'll go sideways in a minute, but so Women, Wisdom, and Wealth all started because I was thinking originally that I would do a special series on my other podcast, which I haven't recorded in forever because of all of these pivots. But I was going to do a special series where I talk to women about their mindset and their money and all of this stuff. And I decided this needs its own space. So there's that. And then the other one that I had actually started on Beehive too, and I'm going to pick up again. It's called Imperfect. And it's just all about, I don't know about you, Ross, but I'm like, if I were to talk to myself 20 years ago, I was wired for productivity, man. It was like, I defined myself by how much I could accomplish. I got a lot of acknowledgement for, oh my God, you do so much, Right. And so that kind of became my MO. And life doesn't work that way. There is this sweetness about we are all imperfect. And I just am so unapologetically myself at this stage in life that I think there is value in sharing those stories. And so, that's going to resonate with men and women.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what I like about both of these is you're kind of sharing your journey in both of them. One is your journey into learning all these different aspects of finance and women's issues related to finance, and then the imperfect is sort of like you're not at all putting yourself in the expert seat. You're just sharing, what we're all kind of going through and saying, hey, you can relate to this, right?
Yeah. Well, and with Imperfect, because it's funny, there's also, and we were talking, which we may or may not get into, because I know we're talking newsletters and stuff, but about YouTube and people, older. I love saying I'm older, right? Like in the midlife generation. It's like I was joking with my dad the other day. I'm like, God, I got to scroll way down to find 1970 now when I have to select a date online. It's like, I didn't used to have to scroll so far. But the thing with Imperfect is there's also, and this, me, Ross, so I've got a quick little story for you. There's also something about claiming the wisdom and knowledge, right? So it's not just about the mess ups and screw ups, or I learned that the hard way, because even with Women, Wisdom, and Wealth, it's not going to be this tactical. Like my last issue, the title was, well, that was an expensive lesson about my move back to Costa Rica and back to California in the span of 5 weeks. And so but it was invaluable. And I needed to go through that to get to where I'm at now. Like so much happened in this very short 5-week window that it's priceless, right? So there's that side of wealth and abundance and finance and it's, people probably wouldn't call that finance, but so much is changing in that field. So, but with Imperfect, there's also these fun. So here's my quick little story. So when I was coming back from Costa Rica, I kind of don't care where I sit on a plane, really, as long as I'm on an aisle and I can hit the restroom. Like, I don't really, first class is great. I've done it a handful of times, and that's the ultimate goal, is always first class. But anyways, so I'm kind of in the back of the plane because, again, this was a last minute flight. And so there's probably 5 or 6 rows behind me, right? We all know how to deboard a plane. You wait your friggin' turn. And so this I don't know, probably Gen Z comes up from the back of the plane, and she's got her sunglasses on, right? And she's like, and steps in front of me, and I'm all, what are you doing, right? And then there were 2 rows of people behind me, and they may have been from, I think they were not US citizens, but I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter. Like, you can see how this is working. So they all get out of their seats too, right? And so I'm like, huh. And I'm pretty spiritual, right? But I'm also very sarcastic. So I'm like, Kim, really, does it matter? I'm like, it doesn't matter, but I'm 54 and I'm done with this shit. So like, I literally pick up my backpack and I'm like, excuse me. And I like step out into the aisle, and I wasn't that loud, right? But I made him back up. And I'm like, there is something so fun about hitting a point in life where you just say, and I think this is probably true for women, because, I was the good kid, and it's like polite and all of these things. And that's great. And I'm never going to be a jerk, right? Like, I'm not an ass to people, but I'm like, no, back up. This is not how this works. And it was the most fun experience. So that's also part of being imperfect, right? Like, it is what it is. And some people wouldn't care in the moment. And maybe another time, Ross, I would care, or I wouldn't care, right? And I'd be like, whatever, I don't. But I'm like, no, I've got to drive up to Northern California today. I've got a 6 to 8 hour drive because of LA traffic. I'm like, no, back up. We're not doing this your way. We're doing this my way. And
if you wanted to be 12 rows forward, you could have paid the extra $18 and picked your seat. You could have moved from really shitty economy to like not so great economy for an extra $30 or whatever, if you really had to be the first person off the plane.
Well, and it was so funny to me because then in the jetway, like the little bougie Gen Z, whatever, I hear her on her phone. Oh my God, they had me like in 30. It was like so ghetto. I was in the back of the plane, and I'm thinking,
really?
Who are you? Like, it was hysterical, right? Because at the same time,
first world problems.
And part of being imperfect, right? Like, it's like, I don't care about that stuff anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is this, you get to midlife and there's all these lessons and stuff. And so, but yeah, I was like, I don't know who you are, but if you're that important, maybe you buy your own first class ticket, sweet pea. But it was anyways. So that's part of imperfect too, right? It's not just about the screw ups, but it's like, no, one day I might be spiritual. The next day I'm like, nope, I'm going to claim my age and we're going to run with this. So there you go.
Well, I have to ask you about this because you mentioned Costa Rica. And one of the things that I've always admired about you is that you have at least publicly, you have no shame about going all in on something and then saying, hey, this isn't working for me, or I got the most out of it, or, it was a success, but I'm not going to be sentimental and stick with it an extra day just because it was good to me in the past. Or if I went all in on something and it doesn't seem to be working, just because I told the world that I'm moving to Costa Rica, or I'm using a certain platform for my email, or whatever it is, you're like, the second that it doesn't serve you anymore, you're okay with like going to the next thing and ruthlessly like, I'm going to make that decision. I'm not saying it isn't hard, but you don't seem to worry so much about, oh, is this bad for my brand, or what is the public perception, or what am I going to tell the people on social media? Like, you just own it and do it, and that allows you to pivot to a better place many times, right? Where, you're not fighting the last war for another 30 years just because you want to have it with a perfectly wrapped up package, neatly ended closure, and all that kind of stuff that people have often stay in a job for 10 years too long because they don't want to look like, hey, I didn't work out, or it wasn't for me, or, I'm a job hopper. Like, you don't seem to let that bother you, and I think that's a key to your success. I can't tell whether it does internally, but that's an observation. What do you think of that?
So thank you for that, because I actually got a handful of comments when I'm like, I'm not staying in Costa Rica, from people with that. And, you know, I still talk to my therapist 21 years later. So she's become a life mentor. She's retired.
Right.
So maybe that's a piece of it, right? But all joking aside, it wasn't always that easy, for what it's worth, and it was, I mean, you figure for 10 years, I stayed under the WordPress chick brand, even though I wasn't a developer or coder. And it's so I think there are some things that are easy and there are some things that are much harder. And you don't hear about the harder things because I'm not as public about them. And I tend to prefer to, because that's kind of how my content always has been. I share the journey. Like, what else? Why not? Right. And so at the end of the day, I have to be okay with my choice, and using Costa Rica as an example, because I did this countdown, right? Lived in Costa Rica a couple of years ago. It was great. And I came back to Northern California to help my dad out. And my mom passed away like 5 years ago. And let me say this, like, it would have been, I don't know if I would have been as brave to move out of the country, or even my first move to Boise, Idaho, if my mom were still here. And I love my dad. We're super close, but my mom and I were really, really tight. My kids are off doing their own thing, so there's a lot of factors that goes into each individual decision. It's funny, Ross, because there's almost the business stuff. I don't know. I feel like, well, why would I keep using something if I don't like it? Like, I don't know. Right. So, and that's it. And it's like, I know myself well enough. And yes, some people like, oh, you hop from platform to platform. Like, I don't care until I find what works. I'm going to stick with it. But at the same time, you look at, so let's see, I pivoted the brand WordPress Chick in finally like 2018 to Kim Doyal. And I was joking that I spent probably the last year and a half slowly burning my business to the ground. I didn't burn anything down to the ground. The newsletter kept going, but I am burnt on the digital marketing space. And there's an element, like, I feel like there's this implosion from the inside out happening. Like, what was working isn't, everything has gotten harder. And I just don't want to be, I'm tired of talking about content and like having this conversation with you about email and newsletters. I'm in the thick of it. It's great. And email marketing is only my second biggest regret, was not starting email marketing sooner. That's probably the first biggest one. The second one was not starting a podcast sooner, but it all worked out, and that was 2013. It wasn't super late, but and so it's one of those things that I slowly kept taking my foot off the gas. I wasn't super public. I tested things. And then when it didn't work, it was like, oh, like, because I've wanted to create something specifically for women. I don't know if you knew this, Ross, but when I started in 2008, in 2009, maybe I launched maybe it was 08. Anyways, I had a Facebook group called the Women of Internet Marketing. And then because at the time it was very pro market.
It was you and a couple other people.
Well, it was just the dudes, like, and again, I'm not anti-man.
It was all the marketing bro kind of culture, right? Back then.
Yeah.
And now women are killing it in the space. I mean,
well, absolutely. And there is this, for lack of a better word, I feel like we are entering the era of the woman for globally across the planet, everything. But not just that, it was like, so I started that. And then I actually did a movie called Women in Business 2.0 in 2010. And I interviewed some big names, and that was a whole experience in and of itself. So I always had this drive, but then at the time, there was such a level of imposter syndrome in me. One, I claimed the WordPress chick before I knew donkey about WordPress. Ignorance was totally bliss. I just fell in love with the platform, right? And I got flack from people, and it was like, but it was always anonymous flack. So, internet trolls. But
hey, I founded Livestream Universe before I had ever live streamed.
See, exactly. I just knew the WordPress.
In fact, I wasn't even planning on live streaming. I was going to cover live streaming, like be the journal about live streaming. And then, of course, I couldn't help myself, hosted a show, and I was like, I think this is where this thing's going to lead.
Yeah, I'm good at this. This is fun, And so, but so the thing is, one, again, thank you for the compliment. And I just feel like that is the best way I can serve people, is to be honest and share the ups and downs. And I've gotten a lot of validation from people over the years, thanking me for being real. And they feel, anybody that meets me, whether it's virtually or in person, this is me. Like, this is my writing. This is my voice. I don't know how to be two separate people. And that took probably the 10 years I was a WordPress chick. My first blog post was heinous. I was like, oh my God, it sounds like the robot wrote it. But, at the time, the only writing had been academic writing, really. And podcasting grew my love of writing, honestly, because of the way I talk, I get a little bit like, hold on, I'll circle back.
Right.
So I had to write out my solo shows first. I don't read them, but I needed the structure. And it became this sort of journaling, processing of my thoughts and whatnot. And then I have fallen in love with writing and just going deeper with stuff. And so it's been a real process to get here. And I do think that comes with life experience also. And I don't know. It's like, there are personal failures that I absolutely haven't shared publicly, but I feel will be, well, not failures, but because I kind of refuse to look at stuff as failure at this stage. It's like,
I don't think we have to share every aspect of our life. I mean,
right.
There's this whole movement for a while of transparency took over. And that's not what transparency really was about. The word transparency came into the public view because of Enron and because of financial malfeasance in big corporations. And then all of a sudden, social media people started pretending that transparency meant you have to share every thought, every illness, every time you stub your... No. I mean, there's those things that you share that may be universal, or that you say, hey, I want to put this out there and people can learn from. But I think it's not a healthy life if everything you're doing is you're living publicly. There's just some things that's nobody's business, and there's some things that you save for your loved ones and your relationships and your family and stuff like that. Or, some things you just like, I'm going to take this to my grave. It's nobody's damn business, right?
You know what? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny you were saying that. I'll never forget going to an event with a friend, and it was Reno, right? And so this was when I was down in the East Bay, and my dad's house, which is where I'm at now, is kind of near Lake Tahoe, right? So we stayed here overnight, and then we drove up, and we're sitting talking to my parents. This was years ago. And this person shared something incredibly personal that was not super relevant. And I could tell my parents were like, oh, like, what do we do with that information?
Right. And especially in their generation, that wasn't normal. It's getting more normal now.
Right. And this person has also said, like, said, well, I'll tell anybody, I don't have any shame. And it's like, it's not about shame. It's not about shame. It's one, does this serve who I'm talking to? Because that's not fair to dump
time and place.
Time and place. I'm a Breakfast Club. I could quote like every other line practically. But there's that scene where they've all gotten high and they're sitting around the couch, and Ali Sheedy dumps her purse out, and then somebody asks something. She's like, "Never mind, forget it." And she starts putting everything away, and he's like, "Well, I didn't dump my purse out and invite everyone into my life," And so there is this piece of sharing. And I get it. Like, for me, it's if there's value in my story, and like, so financial challenges, if I'm going to go all in, and a huge piece for me with women and money is letting go of the shame. We live in a culture that defines us by what we have and what we do and all of these things. And so you can't make change in your life. Nobody is motivated. Permanent change doesn't happen through shame. It just doesn't. Right. You might motivate somebody to do something, but that's not lasting change. And so if there's value for the audience and I'm on the other side of it, that's the key, Ross. If I'm on the other side of it, then I have a different perspective. I'm not one of those people, like sometimes I see like people I'm just Facebook friends with or something, and I'm like, really? Do we need to share that right now? Because they're in the middle of this contentious relationship or issue, or it's passive aggressive. And I'm like, I don't do that stuff. And because the truth is that doesn't serve me either. Right. Like, I've done way too much personal work. So I agree with you. Transparency, there's a time and a place, like, just anyways. Yeah. But the truth is, if I have content to share that is of value and it serves a purpose to somebody, And maybe it makes somebody, because there is this piece of me, Ross, that I do feel like I was put on this planet to create and inspire, right? I believe I do that innately in who I am. And so if I can make someone just go, oh, well, if that Kim got through that, I can get through this or something, especially with where I'm going right now. So yeah, I agree with you. So this ability to share stuff, I've gotten validation for it. And I always tell, it's baby stepping, right? You do it and you realize, like, because the truth is, right? And I heard Wayne Dyer say this once, at 18, you're worried about what everybody thinks. At 30, you don't care what anybody thinks. And then, 50, 60, you realize nobody was thinking about you to begin with. Like everyone's so caught up in their own lives. Most people, okay, decent human beings are going to say, wow, thank you for sharing that. I mean, my biggest post, and I promise I'll get off this tangent, but one of my most shared, commented, highly trafficked posts on my site was the post. It was in loving memory and a personal message of hope. It was the anniversary of my husband's passing, right? 32 years old, died in a car accident. It was 14 years later. And it didn't hit me until like 2 or 3 hours after I'd gotten up what day it was. And I was so in awe of it not being this painful day. And my kids and I had gotten to the other side of it. So I sent an email. It was on a Sunday. And the whole point of it was, you can get through hard stuff in life. You will get through hard stuff in life, and your dreams are worth pursuing. It was real simple, Ross. It was an email. I must have gotten 30 responses within a half an hour on a Sunday. And then I was like, well, I'm going to publish this as a blog post. To this day, most commented, most shared blog post ever. And the fact is, people were like, because we also don't want to talk about ourselves, because everything with copy will tell you, circling back to email newsletters, that you're not supposed to do I. You're not supposed to do I. And I'm like, well, I can't write for you, right? Like, I can share my stories, and hopefully there's something there. I don't know your story, but the point was, it was so many people were saying to me, I had no idea. I had no idea. And it has always been on my about page, right? From day one. But as a woman, also, like, be modest, be humble. Don't because I also didn't want to, I'm not a victim. It sucked and it was miserable and it broke my heart. Right. But it was like, we got through it. And so the point is, like, you share, there was value in that. Right. And it connected me to my audience in a way that I couldn't have imagined, but I just assumed everybody knew it because it was on one page on my website that I put up forever ago.
Right. And it shows how, we agonize over things like, I'm putting my bio page up and it's got to be perfect. And I need an intro because I'm speaking somewhere, and I better redo my bio and it's got to be, nobody's listening and nobody's reading. I mean,
or they hear it and then they're,
I mean, how many times has somebody taken a break from their podcast or their newsletter or their live stream show that they were doing regularly, and then they pop back in after 6 months and you never knew that they were gone? And, people are always telling themselves, like, oh, I can't take a break, or I can't put this down because I made a commitment, or this or that. Like, don't think anybody's paying that close attention. When you're here and you're doing something and you're in the public eye, people might watch. But if you're not there, not everybody's got it set on their calendar, what you're doing in your own content creation. So I think you can take breaks and take a sabbatical, or go off on vacation and not check your phone or anything for 3 weeks if you want to do that. Or, like I say, take 5-6 months away from something and come back to it. And you often come back energized and with a new perspective. You're not doing it out of habit and rote, and, all of a sudden you got better ideas. But I think most of the world, except for like the people who are just like the every week listener, and God bless them, but they're not like the average person who follows your content. It pops in their feed, they see it. Okay, let me take a look at what Ross wrote, or let me not take a look, or this one's interesting, that one, no, I don't care, whatever. Oh, I've been looking for a newsletter thing, so glad they're going to talk about that. But then if I don't publish anything for a while, nobody, they just don't see me in the feed. It's not like they're like, where is he? Like, people are just far too self-conscious about like what all these things mean to the rest of the world.
Right, because we've been trained. We don't want to disappoint people, right? We've
Right.
not been, at least Western culture, it is, we've definitely been taught it's a very individualistic, right? Meaning I, me, myself, and I, and that is what we've been conditioned and advertised to believe. And the thing is, and I don't even think it's that we're not that important as much as people are self-focused is a big key of it, right?
Mhm.
Now, at the same time, I think there's opportunities for those things where sometimes you can be intentional and say, I'm taking a break, back next month, right? Which is kind of one of the things I love about seasons of podcasts,
Mhm.
And so I think when you need to take a break and know it and can be intentional, I think it's valuable to let people know. But sometimes you can't control that, or you don't realize that the last episode you recorded was the last episode you were going to record for a while, or whatever, But to your point, life happens. And I just think for our own mental well-being and health and sanity, we need to just not care so much about all of these things.
Right.
It just drives us in the wrong direction.
And I think we're programmed this way because, school was sort of programming to people to work in the factory or whatever, the way the desks are and all that. But, there was always that award at the end of the year for the best attendance, right? And there was always only a certain number of days of school you could miss. And I'm not encouraging people who are in school to miss school or anything. But,
Yeah, but
you
that's
get
only
to
because
work.
the school gets paid when you're there.
Right,
No
right.
offense.
And then there's work, and a lot of companies have awards for attendance, or they'll announce at somebody's retirement, hey, in 40 years he only missed 3 days or whatever. Any athlete that has like a long streak of playing consecutive games, hey, he showed up hurt, this, that, and of course there's always one person who goes, well, maybe if he took a day off and rested and got better from that injury, he would have had even a better career or whatever. But anyway, that wasn't for the world of being content creators and YouTubers and being solopreneurs and small, like that was a different world. And for our world, people who like are too concerned about churning out the content on YouTube or things like that, they end up burning out. It starts as a dream and it ends up becoming a nightmare because they've become totally captured by the process and they think, I got to show up every day, just like school, just like work. And, unless they can see a route to profit where showing up less helps right away, a lot of people are afraid to do it. I'm going to lose my audience. I'm going to lose my, respect or this or that. And unfortunately, we sell people the dream of being a creator, but we don't tell them that, okay, there's other things you need to do if you want this to last a long time. And one of those things is, I think, you have to pace yourself.
Well, look at the uprising, for lack of a better word, of productivity people, right? And it's just, this is why the spark was called F the Hustle.
F the Hustle, exactly.
Right? Because I was like, I am raising my kids alone and starting a business. If I cannot work harder, if one more person tells me to hustle and grind, I'm going to punch them in the face, right? Because it was also like, that's great. And for what it's worth, Ross, and I don't even care if people take this the wrong way. The bottom line is, I'm glad that all these like either late 20-something white dudes hustle and grind mantra, single, taking care of just themselves, or all the men out there whose wives are at home taking care of their families. It's like this idea that this is the only way to do things is bullshit, and it's just not necessary. There's so much more value. And I will tell you, in like the two people I am so fascinated by in terms of changing mindset and beliefs and all, I love Dr. Joe Dispenza, neuroscientist, Dr. Tara Swart, neuroscientist. And there's so much value to our brains and our ability to produce through rest and taking care of ourselves. And that doesn't mean, it was like one of my favorite, I remember seeing a J.K. Rowling tweet where somebody's like, only you have to the 4 a.m. club and succeeding at 4 a.m. And she was like, oh, piss off, was her tweet back. And it's like, she did okay. She did okay. So we need to look more for, it's kind of like, I'm sure you've heard this. It's that Mr. Rogers quote where he said his mother taught him to look for the helpers because there are always people helping. And so it's very similar that if you look for people who are living life on their own terms and succeeding. And the thing is, Ross, this is where I think this, like the digital marketing space, obviously the spark is still about marketing and content and stuff, but I'm going to kind of chronicle my journey with this other stuff through there and how I'm doing it online. But there is this, when you get outside of this space, there are people, like I was telling you, a friend of mine who within 4 years has a business almost $1 million completely. She left the marketing space. I think there's more opportunity. There is so much more opportunity because even with Substack, right? So, which I got really clear with Substack that I'm like, girl, you got to stop following these people I joined Substack and I'm writing. And now I'm going to teach you how I'm writing about writing and how you can make money with writing. It's this like bad MLM.
In trying all these different platforms, there are so many. It's like every other newsletter is like how to monetize your newsletter.
Right. And I'm like, and all I keep thinking is, I'm like, did you come to the internet and to each their own, truth, Ross, because that's how we learn, right? Like I shared what I was doing, learning with WordPress as I was doing it. But
right. And anybody who knew less than you about WordPress could potentially be helped by what you were doing. So it had value, without a doubt. And it had great value.
Thank you. But the problem with this, it's kind of like, to use WordPress as an example, and I see all these WordPress people who spend all their time and energy inside these WordPress communities of other agencies and other site builders and whatever. And I'm like, this is like a freaking echo chamber. I'm like, where are your customers? And so people who start writing online or they want to do a newsletter, like it seems like low-hanging fruit because you're there, but you just become one of many. So a great friend of mine, well, great friend, like we've been friends online for a long time, finally chatted, but meaning his work is great. Jamie Northrup of the Minimalist Hustler. So he's got a community and he's teaching people about minimal newsletters and writing and stuff. I am not a minimalist when it comes to writing, as you well know. Like I can easily knock out a 2,500 word post when I get into it. And the truth is, I love that. If I'm going to do a podcast episode, I love to tune out the world and write and think about who I'm talking to and how I'm going to say it, but this is who Jamie is. And he's done an incredible job with it. So now I see people from his community mimicking him. Right. And I get it. Steal like an artist that, imitation is the best form of flattery, but all of a sudden it's just like the AI newsletters. I'm like, I don't need another one of these. I like Jamie's because it's Jamie and that's what he did. And his story, and I'm not saying that those people can't find their audiences. What I am saying, Ross, is I'm not their audience. And I realized this, like a friend of mine was telling me she's like, oh, we were on the WhatsApp and she was like, oh, can you hear her daughter laughing? I'm like, no, she goes, she's been watching The Mormon Wives on Hulu. And I'm like, what? Lives of Mormon Wives. And I am not a reality TV show person other than like HGTV, or I like watching baking competitions or travel stuff, right? Okay, so that tells you. I can't do like Kardashian. I can't do any of that nonsense. It makes me like, I can't stand people arguing. Anyway, 6 to 1.
So the last reality show I watched was season 3 of The Real World in 1993 or something.
There you go, right? And the thing is, and I'm not judging people for that's it, but the truth is, like the arguing and the bickering over each other causes me angst. Like I really have hit a point where I'm like, I like living down here. Like my energy is, and I'm energetic, right? But it's like too much noise makes me cuckoo. Anyways, so I turn this show on. I'm like, I can't even get through 15 minutes. I'm like, I cannot watch this shit. This is making me cuckoo. And guess what? I'm not the audience again. And so it's simply for me, like with Substack, and this is to anybody looking, if you're looking to model newsletters or you're looking to model writing, make sure you are their target audience. Like I'm not the target audience for people who are learning to write on Substack and how they did it and stuff. Because the thing is, Ross, like, I know what it is. Write consistently, listen, share your stuff, engage. Like it's not rocket science. And I'm at a stage where I want to go deeper. So I want to get better at writing. I want to get better at relaying a message. And so, you have to be careful when you go to publish a newsletter, like really step back and look for things that interest you, because the marketing about marketing, I'm unsubscribing from all that too. I'm like, I don't need it anymore. I want something where I can learn, and so there's something unique there. And I'm going to recommend this to anybody. And I don't know if you've read this in any of my newsletters, Ross, but I've shared, there's a site, it's growth.design. These guys are amazing. It is, it's product psychology. And so they've created these case studies where you literally can arrow through it. And I did something, I'm like, how are they doing this? So I created these story slides in Canva. But basically, you go through and they do these case studies. I think the recent one they did that I looked at was Blinkist, which is like book summaries or whatever. And so they'll show the phone and they're like, A and B, right, of an onboarding or a trial or whatever. And in this specific example, they showed why one increased conversion 74%. But what I love about going through these case studies is they have these little like educational blurbs that pop up. And it's like, confirmation bias or ethical this, or this is removal of fear in here. And so you start connecting the dots, right? That's the depth that I want. I don't want use listicles or write every day or here's my content wheel. I don't need that anymore. That's all. So it's not a judgment about that, but it's like all of a sudden I found myself, I'm like, I got to find other interests that I'd rather read about than writers who are writing. And then they want to teach you about writing. And then you can join my community about writing. And it's like, oh, this is, it feels very,
you can join my community and then you can join the mastermind and then you can, okay. So the secret's always a little bit out of reach and you have to climb the ladder. And when you finally get to the top, you know that the emperor has no clothes.
Well, yes and no, right? Because at a certain point,
some people do, but like, let's face it, in every one of these online verticals, there is somebody whose business model depends on you never really figuring out what you're good at and how you can do it for yourself and your audience and your niche and your topic. They can tell you kind of what they did and kind of like it's always another level up that you'll get the attention, you'll get the help. And the bottom line is you got to do it and you got to be doing it and then you refine it. And then, you start to see what an audience picks up on and you start to see what you like doing. Like people can't just repeat the pattern that somebody else did unless they are the same person with the same interests and the same audience and the same schedule and the same life experience. It just doesn't work that way. It just, it's a YouTube or newsletter. It's not a paint by numbers thing where if you just follow the same step. Now, there are things you can do that are more likely to drive results than other things. And, people like us can help people with that. Like maybe you should look into doing this rather than this. But these people who've got the whole program where they don't even have to know who you are and they've got the steps for you, chances are they don't. Because chances are they only know what worked for them. And since you're not them, it's not going to work for you. And even if it does to some extent, are you going to be happy with it?
That's just it, right? So they're because what I found, I was joking around about like I burned my business to the ground. And it was like, I couldn't find something to get excited about. I mean, I got excited about AI, right? I was an initial Jarvis, i.e. Jasper. Like, who didn't think they wouldn't get a cease and desist letter from Disney with that? But moving on, so I jumped into that. And then when ChatGPT rolled out, I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. And I connected more with ChatGPT than with Jarvis, because I was like, this is conversational. And so I jumped into that. But at the same time, I didn't want to I joked around in an email. I'm like, I don't want to become the Substack chick, pre-WordPress chick. I don't want to become the AI chick. Like, I don't know any of that stuff. I'm me. I have way too many things that I want to talk about and explore and discover. And so the thing is how sustainable is this? Because, you know, that old saying we've all heard, if you've been online for 5+ years, you've heard marketers ruin everything. And I see these writers becoming marketers, and then it becomes this. And here's the thing again, Ross, I'm not judging, because all of a sudden people see the light at the end of the tunnel if I can monetize and I can make a living with the internet. But, you know, it's just end of story is just that I'm not that audience. Right. And I had paid for a couple newsletters for it. And so, and what I want to send to these people is like, I love what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. But I've been doing this a long time. And so, you know, I was telling you, and before this call, like I'm working on a visual guide to setting up Substack because it is shit, the onboarding. It's like, what is this? What does this mean? Why is there no tooltip? Why is there not a link? And I keep thinking, I'm like, to me, it's something I want, right? And it is a problem. This is the first time, Ross, in a long time that I'm creating something because it's a problem. Right. I kept for years, it was like, well, maybe this will be the thing, or this will work, or the content creators planner. Let's look at that, right? Like we did just shy of $500,000 in sales of a physical $39 planner, because I'm a visual learner and I still handwrite. I'm a paper and pen girl still. I love tech, but I was like, there has to be a way, because, and there is science that backs up the handwriting to the brain and the knowledge and whatnot. But I was like, I do this. I wonder if people would be interested. And it blew up because it was a problem. It was a problem I had. Like I wanted that. And so that's the challenge, right? And this is one of those things, you don't get it until you get it. And I'd heard that. What is the problem? What is the problem? WordPress, as a WordPress chick, like I started, probably my first kind of product stuff that went well was when StudioPress was new. And I did and Genesis got launched, and I did diving into Genesis, and it was a beginner's guide, like step by step. And how I spent so many hours in their forums. This was so long ago, but again, as a visual learner, like I did screenshot with the number 1, screenshot number 2, and then I explained it in everyday language. And so the jumping on the bandwagon of people are making money on Substack, talking about making money on Substack, you know, it's a learning process. Again, I'm just stepping back and going, I am not their target audience, but I do want to support creators. Like I'd rather cancel tools and subscribe to 10, you know, $8 to $10 newsletters to support writers who are showing up and doing their thing.
I'm only subscribed to, like, I'm just recently started using Substack. I mean, I made an account a while ago, but I like actually looking at it. And the one Substack I pay for will never make me $1. I just pay for it because I enjoy reading the content, and I want to be able to read all of it when an article comes out that's of interest to me. Isn't that crazy? Well, like, I'm actually not using it to, you know, this doesn't have to have a financial benefit. I just enjoy reading this one publication, and that's worth $8 a month or whatever I'm paying for it. Just like there's a community on a community-based platform where I like to know what's going on there, and sometimes we'll go to an event, or, you know, we'll get into a chat in their private community or whatever. So I belong to that community. But it's like neither of those things are to monetize for my business. It's just I enjoy that.
How much money does Netflix make you every month?
Right. Nothing. But I don't have Netflix, but that's a different. But I get it.
Whatever,
I get it.
You know, whatever subscription. And you know, and the funny thing is, I remember my daughter saying to me once, and she's like, yeah, she goes, I want a side hustle that I don't have to monetize. I'm all, you mean a hobby? Like it's okay. But her generation has been raised that any pursuit of creativity has to have an outcome, and it doesn't, right? Like I paint. I got into watercolors a few years ago, and I'm like, but I don't want to monetize it. I like painting for people. I like making things. And I mean, I was an art major for a while. I've got some skills and talent in this area. I had a scrapbook store. I designed font stickers. It's like, I could do this. I don't want to, right? Like I really don't. I want to paint for joy.
One of the big themes that I'm seeing among some people who deal with economics online is that, like, really your chance of making it as a creator is like, in any of these fields, it's like everything else, right? The top 1% makes it big, or 1% of 1% or whatever, right? Like, not that you can't make a living with newsletters or with YouTube, but when you see somebody, like, hey, my newsletter went to 5 million in 6 months or what, that's a unicorn, right? That isn't that's going to happen for everybody, right? But a lot of people are making good money with boring businesses that have no relation to anything they're passionate about, but they're able to make so much money from it and then either sell it off or over time delegate, and then they can do whatever passion projects they feel like doing for their own enjoyment and maybe monetize, but they've got a solid financial base from something that isn't glamorous, that, isn't your passion, isn't what you've always wanted to do, but you get good at it, and that has a sort of a momentum of its own when you're actually good at something and you're seeing the success come in and so forth. So that's like another thing people have to think of, is like, not everybody who becomes a creator is really better off going, I need to monetize this right away, or I need to monetize this, or I'm going to succeed in monetizing this because I saw somebody started a Substack and, they're making $5 million a year or whatever. And isn't to say it can't happen, right? But how many people who take these courses are actually ever going to monetize Substack or YouTube or any of these things beyond a small side hustle, which there's nothing wrong with, and it is super cool to this day when I get paid for something that really I didn't do to make money or whatever, but I see a little check come in.
Or you created it a year ago.
Right. And then all of a sudden it picks up or whatever, like even a video that, it did nothing for a couple of years and then starts doing, 10,000, 15, 20,000 views. You're like, what the heck's going on? But like, hey, I did that.
Well, a couple things that I want to address with that. One, I do think there's an element of who you are and how you're wired. Okay. So meaning like when I first started this, I hired a coach, my first coach. I was very committed to making this internet thing work. And I will tell you, Ross, like I could barely attach something to an email. I was not computer interested at all, but my life circumstances said, find something that you can do from home, which I always felt there was something else I was supposed to do with my life besides a job, to each their own. But it was, so I had this coach though tell me, come up with 10 ideas. Right. And my brother has always been into saltwater aquariums. He's owned a store. He's done a ton of, he's still in the industry. Right. And he's like, do that, start making videos about, and I'm like, I don't care about saltwater aquariums. Like, and so I can't just do something if I don't have an interest in it. So I'll tell you that right now, like, right. And so in terms of a business and, Cody Sanchez, big creator, and boring businesses make all the money. I don't want to own a laundromat. I don't want a car wash. I don't want to
say the same thing, even though I go, there's a genius to what she's teaching and preaching. I do think it's sound in a lot of ways, but yes, I don't want to own a laundromat either.
It's super sound and it's super smart. I don't really care about business deals, but the thing is, like, that could be the machine that allows you to do the internet thing, right? So I get all of that. But if you don't want to do it, I was watching this clip, Dr. Andrew Huberman, right? And he was talking about this part of the brain. Again, I told you I'm getting really nerdy here, but I think there's a way for people to start understanding how we change beliefs literally through the brain and create neural pathways. But anyways, there's this part of the brain, I don't remember what it's called, but it's in the middle of our brain. And he said, we have data now that when you are forced to do something, and the example he gave is, he said, so think about like a really obese person and they want to get healthy and they want to lose weight. And so they're going to, white knuckle it, and they're going to start doing all these things that they don't want to actually do and they don't enjoy doing. He said, what we see is over time, this part of the brain starts shrinking. Whereas you take an athlete who loves their sport and they're committed, and when they're working out or when they're committed to this diet per se, that part of the brain gets bigger. So anytime we try to make ourselves do something that we don't want to do, and I'm not talking about like with creating, you got to show up and do the work, right? But when you like it, and your goal is like with Women, Wisdom, and Wealth, I'm so curious about this. I'm so fascinated by it. And if I can have conversations with women and connect and start getting insight, like I'm geeked about it. Now, I will tell you, I feel a little bit wobbly writing and creating in a niche that's new to me. I've been in this marketing space for 16 plus years. And so, but I'm solid enough to know that I get to iterate and I get to make this what I want. And so I'm shaping the mold right now. Like it's like a putter with a clay wheel. It's like, I don't know what it's going to become. And that's okay. It's practice because I've learned that, and so there is this thing of like with the boring businesses and all that stuff. I'm like, that feels like a job. That feels like I've created a job for myself. And why would I? And I get it that there's long-term growth, but again, I have less life ahead of me than behind me in theory, unless I live to be 110, so
I'm not going out in a laundromat.
Well, you know what? It's funny because my mom had an uncle that did very, very well, but he did well with laundromats because then he got into investing. And so whatever your vehicle is, and I think if I'm going to work that hard to do a laundromat, why wouldn't I work that hard for me to pursue something that lights me up, And so that's where I think about it. So one, and I'll tell you this with Substack, because I've shared this a couple times, the top 20 newsletters, there's one business newsletter, top 20 earning newsletters. So Heather Cox Richardson, who it's what's her, an American something, but she's a history professor and she's blown up in a big way because of the election and everything going on. Is it 25 million, 20 million? She earns, it's crazy what she does. All of the top 20 newsletters is except for Lenny's newsletter, which has been around forever. And it's the only business one. None of them are in their creator marketing space or even AI. So what does that tell you? Right. And so my friend that I've talked about, and she'll be on the podcast, because she's amazing. So it's Maritza Parra, and you can go to maritzaparra.com, but she created Heartwork Journaling. Okay. And I'm just going to do a couple little snippets. I can share this information with you, but she went from the marketing space and list building and coaching, and she does watercolors and she paints, So she started with Doodle Your Emotions, which was a paid front end workshop for like $10, which offset her ad costs. And then she offered Heartwork Journaling at like $27 a month. And even then, and again, this is the power of women as they age, she's around my age. And so the members were like, we want a Facebook group. She hates Facebook groups. She did it and she shut it down within 2 weeks. She's like, if you need a Facebook group, then I'm not your teacher. And so, but let me tell you, her first launch, and she stepped back because I've done the whole Facebook ads and I believe in paid traffic complementing organic for sure. But like, I won't ever pay an agency again. I'm going to master it myself. I'm done with it. So she did the same thing. Her first launch, was in the fall of 2020, and she did $46,000. And fast forward, like within 2 years, had done $500,000 in sales. And the thing is, she offers a certification program now to teach Heartwork Journaling. But she showed up doing watercolors and doing all this on live stream for a year, and then she wrote a book. But the point is, would you spend 4 years at something you love to hit $1 million in sales? Hell yes,
yeah.
right? And it's not, and she did it her own way. She has 2 social platforms. She's not everywhere. She's not, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, you have to step back and get really clear on what it is you want to do. And this FOMO of, I have to be marketing about marketing is horseshit. I mean, there's so much more money to be made. And here's the other thing. There's nothing wrong with wanting to make a lot of money for peace of mind, right? Or for whatever. If you need to buy a Lamborghini, hats off to you. I don't care, right? Do you? But the point is, when it comes to like to circle all this back to newsletters and stuff, and I get it. You look at, like, I went from Beehive back to Substack, and I'm seriously going to take, I've had a WordPress site for how long? And that's going to be a standalone page or a few pages. It says, here's where you can find me. Here's where I write. Here's the podcast. That's it. And the truth is, and in terms of monetizing things, like this visual guide to Substack is because it's a problem. I'm not interested in going down this, like, how to use Substack and I'm not doing that. Right. But this is a real problem that I see an opportunity for. Why wouldn't I sell an ebook with an upsell of a course, or like a workshop? I don't want to do courses anymore, but so that's that. But as I pursue these other things,
how soon is it that'll be coming out? Because I could use a tour around Substack.
Before the end of the month. And I'm
awesome.
happy to share. I was actually working on it before we started speaking. But let me tell you, the Substack UI does my head in. I loved Beehive. I liked ConvertKit, but I loved Beehive. And here's the crazy thing, ConvertKit, whatever. I love the UI of Beehive, but there is zero traffic happening. There is an audience built onto Substack. Why wouldn't I go, if I'm going to write, why wouldn't I publish somewhere where there are readers, where there's community? Substack has no API, so there's no scheduling of all the bullshit. You can schedule your publication. You can schedule, because you can email from Substack without publishing to your Substack site, and it's squirrely because you can, but
okay.
It's not clear. I'm just going to tell you that right now. None of this stuff is clear. And so, like, I was talking to a friend last week, and a guy found a way, because there's no API, so you can't connect Substack to ConvertKit. You can't use a Zap. You can't do this stuff. And I will see if I can find the video for you.
In some ways, that's good, though, because it's it forces you to be creative. It keeps it simple. You don't have to try and be everywhere.
And your audience knows that when you're actually engaging, you're actually there, right? And so there's a totally different vibe to Substack. There is an energy of a freshness of people being kind and marketers not marketing on it yet. I mean, it'll come, like, it just, because they're like, where's the traffic, right? And it is what it is. But the point is, it's kind of like, I love audio and video. You and I had this conversation offline about YouTube, and I'm like, I know that I need to revamp YouTube and get back on there because I have a desire to, because the type of content that's working on YouTube, I had done YouTube with the WordPress chick, and this pressure to do how to do this with WordPress and how to do that. I'm like, I don't want to do tutorials. That's not what I want to do at this stage of my life. And so, like, knowing these things, it's like there's a renaissance happening. That's a much better word than this implosion, right? I feel there's this renaissance happening of, like, most consumers are market aware now. They see a funnel coming. They see the upsell coming, right? And so you have to be better at what you're doing. It can't just be this, oh, maybe I do need the audio version of that. Oh, I should get that too, right? So you have to be better. You have to be better. And well, I'm saying, and it's like, and to my point where I was saying, like, I want to go deeper. And that doesn't mean, like, me talking about neuroscience and creating new neural pathways, me saying I'm a visual learner. One course that I would love to take, and there's a handful of these out there, that are on creating visual metaphors, right? Because, like I said, I was an art major for a while. Like, I did all this stuff, and I'm like, there's something about seeing a visual for me that really, really works, which is why I want to do this, why I am doing the visual guide, so there's so many ways to differentiate yourself. And when you step out, if you are in the marketing space, when you step out of that space and you start discovering people who are killing it with cookie decorating, right? Or they're showing you how to tie fishing flies or whatever it is, like, and there's so much more. It's just that this has become this, like, incestuous space, and it's just, I'm a little bit over it, and it's crazy.
Take the skill set and apply it to something else. Like, you're whatever you do, you're still going to have to market. You're still going to have to sell. You're still going to have to find a vehicle to make it public and grow an audience and everything. But it's like all that kind of, if you have some skill at it, it all falls into place when you find the right piece of content that works. Like, when you're passionate about whatever you're creating or you're doing or your business or whatever, then it's like all those little marketing things that, like, drive you crazy. All of a sudden it's like, that's just a part of me getting to where I need to get to, right? Like, it has a different feel to it.
I was very, not anti, but I just wasn't excited about sharing social content about content and email. I hit a wall, and I was just like, this just doesn't excite me. There's nothing fun about it, right? And in all transparency, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, it woke up a beast within me. and I'm not going to get political here, but it reignited this fire of being pro women and for women. I still have tons of amazing male friends. I like men, right? Like, all of those things, but it lit something in me that said, this is where you want to go. But here's the other thing. At this stage of life, I had the patience to let it evolve, right? So like with Women, Wisdom, and Wealth, outside of the paid newsletter, I don't have a community. I don't have an offer. I don't have anything yet because I trust that it's going to show itself if and when it's right. Like I'm not like, I'm going to go make a program, join my course. Here's how to master that. No, I'm going to share my journey and there's going to be opportunities. And I don't know what they are. I don't know what they are because I trust. Do I still need to make an income? Absolutely. And so that hence the spark and sharing the journey of building something new in a new niche. Like I get to be my own case study, but all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a ton of fun creating social content for Women, Wisdom, and Wealth because I believe in it. And all of a sudden I have this different view of the spark. You know, I see this happening with a lot of people who have been in the marketing space for a long time. It's just feeling tired, for lack of a better word. And it's always going to be there, right? But it's not going to be tired to somebody who just started 2 years ago. Right. Again, I'm not the target audience anymore, but there's a prolific ads gal, Amanda Bond, and she had done, which I fell in love with her article that she wrote in 2018. It was why your Facebook ads have stopped working, but she called out all the bro marketers, 6-page article, man. And she took her time to do this and ran ads to it. It's amazing. But she has sent out this thing. She's like, I'm leaving the internet marketing space. You can get my course. Good on her, right? One last time. And then that's it. You know, and so there is a shift happening. And again, I think I like the term renaissance and because it feels good. It feels that people have to show up differently. They have to be better. And, you know, and remembering that the people who are reading or watching or listening are people. They're people and you know, I have an issue with selling in the sense that it's not a default comfort level for me. But when I have a solution to something that makes me cuckoo, you're going to hear me screaming from the rooftops about this visual guide to Substack because I'm like, how can such a big company have such a shit UI? Like, what? And it is just wonky, right? Each step you're like, well, what is this? And where does it appear? How do I know what? So now I have to do it. Here's an example. There's something about, and I forget what it was, but with the paid and the free version of newsletters. And so you go in to edit the email. I'm like, what? So there's 4 different emails in one spot. And I'm like, this. So I wrote and I was like, this is this email. This is this email. And so then I sent them all to myself to see what they would look like. I'm like, why do I need this? And what's the point? Right. So there's a lot to be desired. Maybe Substack will want to make this a official publication for them. But either way, you know, it's something that I saw a problem. I've just relaxed, Ross. And I think to circle back to email, newsletters, whatever, if I were to give advice on this, one, you have to like logging into the platform. If you don't, then it's never going to work. And I like Active Campaign. We used it for the planner brand because it had this deep integration with WooCommerce and all this stuff. I've hated WooCommerce. That's why my business partner was brilliant at it. But it was like, I want ease. I want ease at this stage
still
of my
don't
life.
know whether my WooCommerce is set up correctly. I mean, I keep getting emails like, oh, finish setting up your WooCommerce. Like, are you telling me it's not set up correctly? Or are you telling me there's some feature that I don't need that you want me to install or you want me
or
to
buy
add?
an add-on for
Right,
or whatever.
So,
And the thing is, like, I don't know if you've seen, there's all this drama in WordPress right now with WP Engine and Matt Mullenweg and stuff. And I'm like, oh God, I'm so glad to be out of this space. And the thing is, WordPress is not the easiest solution out there anymore. You know, there's too many alternatives, but the bottom line is, I don't know that it was ever the easiest. It was just kind of the main one. But if you don't like logging into something and it doesn't make sense to you, it's going to be really hard to build something on that. You know, ConvertKit, like it always blew my mind. And I guess I'll eventually call it Kit. I still have a ConvertKit account. I'm not paying for it right now, but I'm like, you say you're for creators. Why is there no visual builder here? Why is there no visual editor? And then as soon as Beehive came on, like 1,000 miles an hour, right? Like updates and updates and updates, and they deploy quickly. Then all of a sudden, ConvertKit starts having visual builders. I'm like, I don't want to know liquid code. I shouldn't have to put in code snippets to send something or to me, you know? And so there's a lot of amazing functionality with Kit. If you have, if this and that, the conditional logic and all that stuff. But I'm like, I really wasn't doing a lot of that, to be honest with you. So do I need it? And there is a way to connect Substack with an email service provider. I found a guy on video on YouTube, and you basically, because you get a notification every time somebody subscribes to your publication. And so then that's the trigger through Gmail, right? And so, but then I'm like, okay, but what about the unsubscribes? I have to make sure I'm getting notifications when people unsubscribe, so it happens on both ends,
Right.
so it gets a little messy, but I'm like, do you need this right now, Kim? I don't know that you do. So I'm just focused on Substack. And truly, like, if Beehive had traffic besides SEO, because the truth is, I'm not an SEO expert. This is just Kim's ass backwards prediction of, with AI, I mean, I go to ChatGPT or I go straight to Google and I type in a question and I get a generative answer. So I'm like, what's the point of SEO? Like, what is Google going to do for all these websites out there? And
unless you're number one in the topic that the question's on, good luck.
Right. And so it is about finding where your audience is, but using a tool you like. What type of content you want to create is based on, like, I said this, I've been saying this for the last year and it's coming to fruition, is all I want to do is write and record. I just want to write and record. Right. Like, and so, like, that would be my ideal. That doesn't mean I don't create stuff and sell or whatever, but the core function of my business now is writing and recording. And so what does that look like for me? And it just felt stupid to not move to Substack when there is built-in traffic. And let me tell you, when I moved the Spark, because I have Imperfect, which is getting picked up again, like, I start publishing. I started Women, Wisdom, and Wealth a few weeks ago. But the Spark, I was like, Beehive is due tomorrow. So I didn't want to pay for another month of Beehive, knowing I was moving to Substack. And so just did this import, and now I have all this housekeeping stuff to do. However, I'm going to do it while I create the guide.
I have all these Substack questions I want to ask you, but I promised we would go through the pathway. So let's hit some pros and cons. Okay, I'm ready to leave ActiveCampaign. It was great for me for a while, but I struggle with its email builder, like the visual aspects of it, and things like line spacing and font and all that not staying the way I said it. It's too much. It's like I don't enjoy using it anymore. So that's where I'm at with ActiveCampaign. So the first thing I did was I did a free ConvertKit. Now I like ConvertKit instantly. I felt it was very, very, very intuitive how to build out the newsletter, whether it was a long email or it was a bunch of different sections, or it all came together very, very nicely. It's got a very nice built-in platform where the web version goes, whether or not you use that or it means anything. It's got a marketplace. Does anybody really find you through there? You can recommend people. Do they recommend you? So my open rate on the one email that I sent, without doing a custom subject line, my open rate blew away the open rates that I've had in ActiveCampaign for the last 6 months. And so did the clicks onto links. So that alone said, you know what? Plus, I can use it for free, given that a lot of the features that I pay for in ActiveCampaign, I really don't make much use of anyway. So I could, when my, I'm not going to even wait till my subscription runs out. If I choose ConvertKit, kit.com, I will start using it tomorrow. So what are the pros and cons of Kit? Why would somebody want to use that, and why would you say that isn't the best option for someone?
Well, the pros are exactly what you said, in terms of the visual builder. And like, I don't not like ConvertKit. I liked Beehive better. Okay. Just I like the interface. I've logged in to see the new Kit rebrand and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, nah, I don't know. It doesn't necessarily excite me. It doesn't not excite me. I'm pretty indifferent to it. So the benefit to ConvertKit is, again, the visual builder. Yes, you've got this, you can become a part of the creator network, which I will tell you, I think it's garbage, in sense of So basically, when somebody opts into your list, you can say, hey, subscribe to all these. And I know Substack has that too, right? And I haven't added any of it. I will add some recommendations. But the analogy I gave in a newsletter once was it's like kind of going to a winery. You go in, you have this incredible experience, you taste some wines, you're like, you know what, we want that one and that one. You go to leave the winery, and 6 other wineries are like, take my wine, try my wine, try my wine. And you're just like, oh my God, okay. And so you take all these, and then all of a sudden you start getting emails from the wineries, and you're like, who is this winery? What was, I mean, good or bad analogy, whatever. That's what happens, right? I want somebody who wants to be on my list and reads something and chooses it. And am I shooting myself in the foot? Yes or no? A friend of mine ended up deleting like 600 people because they were all cold and they had all come from the referral network. So I am publicly saying I don't think it's stellar. To me, it serves the platform and not the creator, right? Because the more subscribers you have, the more your account's going to cost. So I would love to know what happened to Kit's income by introducing this, right? What happened to their monthly recurring revenue versus, because of course, if you have people on your list that aren't opening, your click-through rate, your open rates are going to start dropping. My open rates and click-through rates went higher than ConvertKit when I went to Beehive. I got a
right, and you don't want to be
7%.
paying for people who aren't opening anything, so then
Right.
you've got to clean out your list constantly.
Right. And so I would rather be in control of my efforts versus, or I'd rather do a newsletter swap with somebody where they want to send a solo email and it's an intentional collaboration versus
Right.
it's annoying to me. Anyways, so if you like using ConvertKit, it's great. Okay. You've got landing pages built in. You've got a website in essence for your publication, but
It's all very professional looking and easy to use.
But there's still no traffic there.
But
You still have to send traffic.
Beehive and ConvertKit, it's still you're getting your traffic from somewhere else. Social media, word of mouth, speaking, whatever it is you're doing, your content, your YouTube, you're getting the traffic from somewhere else, and then they're getting the email. Nobody is going to your website that you set up in ConvertKit or coming from the network, and you're getting high quality engaged followers, right? Like
Right.
in Beehive and in ConvertKit, that's a consistent theme, right? For both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a while since I've been in ConvertKit with the newsletter side of it. Like I know when I was publishing a newsletter with Beehive, you have SEO options to put in. But again, I'm like, does this matter? Right? Like I want people to, and I'll tell you what, I've only published a handful of things on Substack, and each time I publish, I get a new subscriber I've never heard of. What does that tell you?
What made Beehive better than ConvertKit for you?
It's probably just I just liked the UI. Honestly, that sounds so silly. I loved how it looked. And I started saying, like, God, I wish Beehive would become an email service provider, full blown. And they did. They started adding automations and all of these things. But the one thing then that I was like, this is frustrating, is if I'm going to use stuff like within ConvertKit, you can do a trigger link, meaning I can hyperlink something. And if somebody clicks it, I can tag them. That was, but it wasn't enough for me to not use it per se. But I'm like, I wanted to do, where you want to gather data or add somebody to a tag without having to do a poll or a survey or something, so I think it depends on the sophistication of what you need. If you've got stuff that you want on evergreen sales and all of that stuff, ConvertKit or Beehive, but I think ConvertKit would do this better.
Better for sales, digital
better
products,
for sales,
and things like that.
But you have to do, if you are a user, go to nurturekit.co. My friend Jason Resnick is brilliant at this. But it's, so that you can actually get data. So when somebody subscribes and you're like, are you a writer, a podcaster, or a video creator, right? And then you can automate all of this content so it serves them where they're at. Okay. That is brilliant. There's too much data out there. I wouldn't say that stuff doesn't work, but if you're not going to do it, if it's not who you are, if you're not wired to go that deep, do you need it? Probably not. And so before I decide that I'm going to set up this, Substack to ConvertKit, because I would go back to ConvertKit before I'd go back to Beehive. I still love Beehive. I think it's beautiful. At the same time, here's another example with Beehive. I feel that their model, so we've got the creator network, right, within ConvertKit, Beehive, it's all about being able to make money with your newsletter through ads. So it's like, oh, this company wants to sponsor your newsletter. I'm like, they don't want to sponsor it. They want me to put a link in that I get. Because to me, a sponsorship means I'm getting a flat rate.
Sponsorship means they pay you first, and then
right.
then they hope to get sales off of it. If you're
exactly,
essentially they're giving you an affiliate link, right?
Right. That's all
you advertise.
Right? So you get
they're
paid
asking
per click.
you advertise them, and then you're trying to drive the clicks. It's your job to get the people to click on it. In other words, they're getting exposure in your email for free, and you're only making money if it converts.
Right. That's it. And so it's kind of like, I love it when companies do outreach and, like, oh, collaboration opportunity. I'm like, and it's just for me to be an affiliate. I'm like, you don't want to collaborate. You want me to be an affiliate and market for you. I'm like, why wouldn't I put that energy
That's
into
not
my
a sponsorship.
stuff?
That's not a sponsorship. It's not an advertisement. We've lost the language in the online marketing world in the last 10 years. The language of what people call a sponsor, they're so free and loose with that. It's like, no,
right.
It's not a sponsor or an ad if they're not paying you for it.
Right.
Or you're not getting something of similar value in trade. Right? Like...
right. And the thing is, like, and Beehive is really driving their affiliate program. You get paid for a year.
Right.
But the thing is, it's like, and they're doing all these contests and all these things, and that is great, right? Like, it's great for Beehive, but does it make sense? It depends on your business model. For me, where I'm at, where I'm going, the only affiliate stuff you're going to see is something I use and love. Like, if I come across something and I love it, I will share that in the Spark, because I still talk about digital marketing with that one. And, but at the end of the day, I'm like, wouldn't I be better off marketing myself? So
did you expect more traffic within Beehive when you went there?
No, because I knew going into it, right? Like, no, I didn't expect.
So it was more
traffic.
that you just really liked it. You just liked the feel of it, and the fact that it was more explicitly newsletter than
right.
Well, ConvertKit puts a heavy focus on newsletter. It really is positioned more as an all-in-one email solution.
Correct. And I started with ConvertKit. My ConvertKit account was probably 8 or 9 years old. So I started with ConvertKit when it was just an email service provider. Right. And so, I mean, that's what I'm saying, Ross, there's this renaissance of stuff happening. And why wouldn't I go where people are?
All right. So let's just get into it, because Substack is where you are. It's what you believe in. It's where you're putting all your chips right now. Before I ask you about it, tell me why somebody might not want to do Substack. They might want to do ConvertKit, Beehive, or even ActiveCampaign or MailChimp or what. Like, why would somebody Substack? Who won't succeed with Substack, or for whom will Substack not be a good option? Do you have an avatar of some people who shouldn't do Substack?
If you're not ready to be public, right? If you don't want to be found and with all of the email service providers that you mentioned, you don't, to your point of, it's not you have an audience that you're going to send emails to. So the cadence and the consistency and the frequency in which you do that is going to be different than Substack, where, like, the crazy thing is, like, I imported Imperfect, a year ago, and I haven't published, but like I said, I'm going to, but I still get subscribers because there's content there. So people will see that I've written, right? And so if you don't want to have a public facing place to publish, then Substack probably isn't for you, right? But I'll tell you that, there's a lot of stuff going on, and, there's a lot of stuff going on, and so that they've introduced, like you were saying, like, they've introduced notes. And so a lot of people don't know, it's like notes. There's this sort of Twitter and Threads, because I feel like Threads is blowing up too. I refuse to use Twitter because of Elon. And so, it's just, so there's opportunities. They've added live streaming. You can do podcasts. So there's a ton of stuff happening. Excuse me. My biggest issue with Substack is, again, it could look a lot better. Like it could look a lot better, but I refuse to cut off my nose to spite my face.
And
That's
I don't
it.
feel there's any
So,
guidance with Substack on what's the best way to add your podcast. Like maybe it's in there, maybe I have to do reading or look at some blogs.
no,
but like,
you don't. You
do
don't.
you want
this is
do you want a separate feed for your podcast? Do you want it in your newsletter? Should you write a newsletter about your like where does all this stuff go? What's the best way to send it? Like what works, what doesn't, what's within the culture of the site? Like there's no there's no intro. There's no intro to the site at all. It took me a while to figure out that you have that a publication is separate from your personal profile. And like
and now you can
and
write
you could put your publication
profile.
on your you could do it as a post.
Right. So trust me. I'm like, as I'm doing this, and this is why, because I do have a knack for doing this, right? Like the step-by-step guides and stuff. And whatever, if it changes, so be it. I don't care. But like you just gave me an idea. I'm like, I could easily do a series on a visual guide to Substack podcasts, right? Because there's an element to, it's not just going to be do this, then this, do this. It's going to be like, here's a great example. They use the term, and it made me cuckoo, publication word mark. And it's like, you mean a header or a banner? Fine. And I get it because they use bylines versus author, right? Which author is common with blogging and Medium and WordPress and all of these other things. Byline is much more conducive.
Journalist.
You think of journalist, right? I totally get it. But how many people won't? Byline. And I know this sounds silly, but publication word mark, like why on earth wouldn't you say that, like, this is the header? Like it, and again, it doesn't matter what you call it, but make sure that the person knows, or let me upload the image and then click and see a preview. I mean, it's just, to me, I'm not a UI expert, but I'm like, okay, this is, so there's all of these things with Substack, but the frustrations aside, how could I not? There's built-in traffic. There's new people to connect with. And that's what starts happening. I think if you're going to niche down, and I'm stepping into a new niche and whatever, but I think there is a desire to create new connections and relationships and stuff. And so your relationships are what will make your business grow at the end of the day, And so I am grateful for friendships. Like we've been friends a long time, and the relationships I've made, but growth happens outside of our comfort zone. Right. And so it's like where I was talking about these echo chambers within WordPress people sticking in these WordPress communities. I'm like, your customers and clients are probably not in that community. I get it from a professional standpoint if you're going to learn something, but a lot of people use communities as distractions from doing the work.
Right. Now, I noticed that they added live streaming because I promised myself, like, I'm not going to bother Kim over the weekend about Substack or any of these. I'll talk to her another time. And then I messaged you at probably 10:30 at night on a Saturday or whatever going, wait, they have live streaming on Substack? That I couldn't let go because I had no idea. I don't know if they made a big deal out of it when they rolled it out, but I saw nothing on it. But now, if you have live streaming on Substack, essentially one of the benefits you can offer subscribers is you can join the live stream, whether it's by the chat or whatever. But you could live stream and you could take your phone and go live. It's essentially it becomes a community, right?
Well, it is. That's the whole piece of this, And the few people that I am kind of paying attention to in terms of what works with Substack is not writing about writing so much, but I want more, not technical, but as an example. So, and I apologize, I don't remember the gal's name, but she talked about when it comes to like having a premium publication, people don't necessarily want to pay for additional content. They want to pay for access. And so yes and no, right? But I mean, to me, access could be just a once a month live stream or a webinar. But the thing is to get people into the paid, now that you can live stream on the platform, if they resonate with you or they connect with you in any way, shape, or form, then, that's why I always said, like, as an example, like podcasting to me is one of the most intimate types of content. If somebody's willing to listen to me for an hour and they take me with them shopping, walking, whatever, I'm like, that is my 1,000 true fans piece. And so when people want to watch you or listen to you, because then they start hearing you when they read you.
Right,
okay.
right.
So for one, but yeah, so this whole community piece, that's people are literally doing their whole business on Substack now, Ross, where you've got where webinars live and all this stuff. And it is not super intuitive. And I might, play around with down the road when I figure out what that looks like for me. But I really don't want to have another platform. I just canceled MemberVault. I'm like, all of my courses gone, done. Sorry, they're over. Like, I don't. Well, for the time being, and it's like, until I understand the value to my audience versus let me create a course because I'm supposed to, and I need to have something else to sell, but it's at the same time, like, I don't necessarily want to do a ton of one-on-one coaching or it's going to cost a lot of money. Right. I need a lot of white space in my life. And so Substack, you get to make it what you want. It really is sort of this canvas because there's traffic there and you get to decide. So while I've got Women, Wisdom, and Wealth, there is a premium that I've set up. I'm making the content free for the first month. The weekly newsletter will always be free. And then there will be other content that won't be free that people are going to have to upgrade to. And it's a test. I got to figure out what works for me.
Right, right. I think what's interesting is when I saw I call it the Twitter feed, but what do they call it? Notes, right? They call it notes. Okay, so when I saw that, I initially said, oh no, I don't want to do this. This is going to become all involved. I'm going to be on social all the time. But then I thought, what if it takes off and I'm building a newsletter here and got my podcast here? Like, I just drop these things into the feed. I talk about them. I can engage. Hey, I don't even have to go to Twitter or Threads or Instagram, or I can post photos. Like, this could become what Mark Zuckerberg was dreaming Facebook would be when he added video playlists and all these, like, he wanted Facebook to become a replacement for YouTube. Basically, I think, in my opinion, he wanted Facebook to become your portal for the entire internet. Like, you wouldn't even need to go outside of, and it never became that. Because Facebook's still very much current, and it's not like a resource where you go back to people's, catalog of content and things like that.
No. Well,
not at all.
It was never set up that way, yeah.
But YouTube is, podcasts are, and Substack is. Because now you've got the whole newsletter feed in there, and if you start liking and going down the rabbit hole, you can go, okay, maybe I'll go back to the beginning and I'll start with Kim's journey. Or maybe I'll pick out 5 that are interesting to me because I want to learn about whatever the topic is that you did 5 newsletters on out of your 100, 204, or wherever you're at with the Spark right now. So I think it brings together the best of all the platforms in a lot of ways. Or it has the potential to. It has the potential to.
It has the potential to. I still, the whole onboarding is wonky. I think that visually there's a lot, like, I wish I could do other things like the headings in my newsletter. I would do a different color for those. And it was all still a very clean, right? Like, I didn't get too cutesy, because the one thing I'll tell you is there's some people, their formatting makes me ape shit in Substack. And it's like, you're hit before you, like, below the fold, right? So below the first scroll, you still haven't gotten to the meat of the content. And I'm like, this is cuckoo. Right? Like, I want to get into the content. I have no problem with the buttons to upgrade or to share or any of those things, but less can be more, or people are overusing emojis. Oh, for the love. Like, I love a good emoji, but like, it gets so busy that I don't want to read it. Or, I'm a big nut when it comes to formatting of text. And it's like, people don't read the web the way they read print, right? And so it's like, you have to break up these intense paragraphs, or I'm like, please don't put 50 links.
And it's even worse when you read it on your phone.
Right.
Like
You know,
it's like basically a sentence looks like this on your phone. So it's like you're going to put together 7 sentences in a row. Where does this end? I don't want to read this. It's like it's too much.
Right. You know, and it's crazy because again, this is what's happening is that people that are new to Substack and are doing the how to use Substack kind of stuff. Like it's kind of this free for all, which I guess the internet was too. But I'm like, there are some best practices, and ideally, when somebody knows better, they do better. So there's a learning curve there, right? And so there's a lot to be desired visually and directionally, or educationally, or I don't know what the word is, but there's a lot to be desired from a visual perspective, and there's a lot to be desired in terms of figuring out the platform. Like it shouldn't be this hard, which is probably people would probably say the same thing about WordPress, but WordPress was a self-install, figure it out. Right. And so, and I guess on this perspective, you could say, well, you're not paying for Substack, right? You don't, they take a percentage of your fees, which hear my heart, like where I mentioned Heather Cox Richardson, you know, if they're taking 10% and she's doing $1 million, that's a chunk of change. She's doing more than $1 million. However, is that what's the cost to your peace of mind and ease of use and not managing multiple things? And so you start getting into all of this.
You're not paying.
You're not paying. Right.
You're not paying $39.99 a month when you're not making any money from it. So
you're not paying for traffic.
You have a long runway.
Right. And the truth is, if I'm making $1 million a year, am I going to whinge about $100,000? Probably not. I don't know. To each their own, right? Like, how much is enough? We won't get into the American oligarchs and all they want to do. Like, it's never enough, right? But again, this is a different space. And so, you know, to me, it's like, why on earth? Like, wouldn't you rather serve food to hungry people? Mm-hmm. That's all I'm saying. It's like, you're not going to like go into a restaurant where people are sitting down eating, trying to sell them food, right? So it's just that to me, it felt, this is stupid.
How long did you test Substack? How long did you test Substack before you decided to commit to it and shut down your other email service, Beehive?
Oh, I didn't really, because I had signed up for Substack a few years ago and hadn't really done anything with it.
Right, but once you got serious about it, once you started putting newsletters,
I didn't test it, Ross. I just did it.
You just did it. Okay.
I mean, seriously, like Women, Wisdom, and Wealth has 4 issues now, 3 or 4 issues. The Spark I just imported a week ago, and then Imperfect I imported like a year ago, right? So I knew because I read enough, I subscribe to enough Substacks, and I just like, that's part of what I do with the Spark, right? Is I curate stuff. I've got original content, but I curate stuff, and it is just, the traffic is there. We don't know what AI is going to do to SEO. We just don't. I see it. It's all going to change, you know, and Google and all of their freaking algorithm updates that people have traffic here and then like whatever. If I can be in a place where people are reading written content, right? It's kind of like, you don't go to YouTube, you go to YouTube for video, right? So
Substack certainly indexes better than like any other email provider. So, you know, Substack does index, and you don't have to do anything with it, right? I mean, basically like you write your headline just like you would a blog post on your own site.
You know, and part of this, Ross, I'll say this, like the reason I didn't do like a bunch of testing before going on, one, I don't want to manage 2 places. I really don't. And then the other thing is this has been a transition in the making, right? So I would say it was really the beginning of 2024 when I was just feeling this, like, there's gotta be I didn't know what it was. I didn't know the direction in terms of shifting the type of content or pursuing a master's was nowhere on my radar a year ago. You know, all of these things. And so, you know, what people have to do is let it, like, do it. And I don't care. I'll test in public. I don't care. Like, I really, like we covered all of that, right? So I don't mind building it in public. And even with Women, Wisdom, and Wealth, like I kind of did it more of a format and similar to the Spark. And I'm like, I don't think this is going to work for this. This is going to be different. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but I've been transparent in that, guys. I'm going to keep iterating until I find what works. I may not keep up this segment on Women You Should Know or this segment or whatever it is. It's going to become its own thing. And I'm okay with that. So what if you're going to jump in, jump in. I don't know.
Right. And you should publish your whole newsletter on Substack, right? Like you're not sending people from Substack to somewhere else to read the rest of
No.
it. If anything, you're sending them from somewhere else to Substack so that they subscribe, and then eventually maybe they even become paying subscribers.
Right.
So
Yeah,
whatever, so Substack becomes just like your website. You put the whole thing on there.
Yeah. Which again is why, for me, and it was like, cause I'm like, well, do I have to pay for WordPress host anymore? But however, I deleted a ton of WordPress content years ago, but I'm like, it's probably not a today problem. Like I'll look at doing it because it's like $30 a month, but I'm like, yeah, but I could do $30 in an ad somewhere. Right. So, but until I know where I want to move that to, but I am going to keep kimdoyal.com, and it's going to probably be a landing page. That's it,
Right.
with where you can find me and connect with me. And then just last kind of thought on Substack and social is, for me, like I will keep with Facebook and Instagram because I'm going to run paid traffic on Facebook and Instagram. And I know I will get rewarded if I'm organically on those platforms too. They don't ever come out and say that, but it does work, right? The more engaged you are, and there's a different strategy to that. So, but for me, it's kind of like Substack, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube is coming. So there we go.
Everything is content. So
everything is content.
We're planning to catch up, and then we're planning to talk a little bit about newsletters, and we did it all in long form video podcasting style, and it's been just a wonderful conversation. Kim Doyal, everybody can find her on Substack at Kim Doyal, or what is it?
Or kimdoyal.com.
kimdoyal.substack.com.
Yeah, and all my socials are at Kim Doyal, Doyal,
Okay.
by the way. So I'm not hard to find.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kim. It's been wonderful catching up with you and hearing your plans. And I think you gave people a lot to think about in terms of the potential of Substack and newsletters and what they can do and not do going forward in order to have a little more peace of mind in this crazy, fast-moving online world that we're living in.
Thank you, Ross. This was a ton of fun. We could chat for hours. I know it's always the case, but thank you for having me.
Thanks, Kim.